Hello everyone, welcome to BYD Classes and welcome to the second season of Mains 365 Polity sections, and it is a part second and part first was uploaded in the channel, in the YouTube channel. Okay, so you can watch part first and this would be the part second. So we will start from right to free speech. The Supreme Court ruled that about right to speech and says that no additional restrictions other than those which are permissible under Article 19, Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution can be imposed on free speech of public functionaries. So here Supreme Court ruled that Article 19, Clause 2 is reasonable restrictions when it comes to the public functionaries. And also the Supreme Court held that a statement made by a minister, even in official capacity, cannot be attributed vicariously to government by invoking principle of collective responsibility. Under Article 75 Clause 3 for Union and 164 Clause 3 for states, the Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the House of the People and State Legislative Assembly respectively. And Supreme Court ruled that collective responsibility flows from Council of Ministers to individual ministers, not on reverse. Okay, so remember this, that Council of Ministers from Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to individual ministers and not individual ministers responsible to the Council of Ministers. Okay, and fundamental rights under Article 1921 can be enforced even against persons other than state or its instrumentalities. So Article 19 and Article 21. Under Article 19, the freedom of speech and expression can be reasonable restrictions, and Article 21, the right to life and personal liberty, can be enforced individual as well as against the state. Only statement made by a minister inconsistent with the rights of a citizen may not become actionable as constitutional tort. Okay, but if it leads to an act of omission or commission by a public official, then it is a constitutional tort. Okay, constitutional inviolable. The constitutional tort or constitutional violable is a violation of one's constitutional rights, particularly fundamental rights, by an agent of government acting in his or her official capacity. And Supreme Court or a court of law can award monetary compensation to the victims in such cases. Okay, and what are facets of free speech? Under this, given the four multiple facets or four problems of free speech, that is freedom of press, right to report and broadcast, right to be informed, and right to silence. So these are the facets of free speech. And what is free speech? Free speech is the legal right to express or seek out ideas and opinions freely without fear of censorship or legal action. Universal Declaration of Human Rights under Article 19 states that anyone has right to express their opinions freely in whichever way they want, and need of free speech and need of restrictions. Need of free speech, that is, first is accountability, because media and civil society organizations reporting on pressing issues shape public perception and enhance government accountability. And active participation, the free speech is very important in active participation, supports fundamental rights like freedom of assembly, empowering citizens to influence public decision making through protests and demonstrations, and promotes equality. The campaigning and openly addressing community issues can bring them to forefront, gain public support, and halt human rights abuses, and necessary for change and innovation. The free speech protects creative license of artists and allows them to develop and share ideas freely. And the free speech maintains the intellectual property rights of the creativity or invented person. These can be academic writings, theater, cartoons, visual arts, and intellectual property rights. Okay. And next is the development. Freedom of speech is crucial for freedom of thought, as exposure to diverse ideas allows for independent perspectives and meaningful discussions. And building block. Free speech forms a foundation for other rights granted to citizens, such as freedom of press, which helps in inculcate a better informed public and electorate. Okay. Need of restrictions of freedom of speech and expression. Why? Sovereignty and integrity of India. The Constitution 16th Amendment Act 1963 added Article 19 Clause 2 to restrict speech threatening India or instigating secessionist movements. So it is a very applicable in the sovereignty and integrity of India. And security of state is of utmost importance, and imposing reasonable restrictions on activities risking security of the nation is of vital importance. And friendly relations with the external states or foreign state to curb malicious actions like threat to terrorism and cyber attacks, to jeopardize the reputation of country, and to maintain positive relations with other countries in a globalized world. And public order, decency or morality. There are 6 rights under Article 19 Clause 2 which are reasonable restrictions, such as public order, decency or morality, or friendly relations with foreign states, and contempt of court. These are 6 rights. Okay. So sovereignty and integrity of India, security of state, friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, and contempt of court. And next is the defamation or incitement to an offence. Contempt of court given under Article 129 and Article 215 by Supreme Court and High Court respectively. And defamation, recently the Center advised the court in case of defamation against Rahul Gandhi, a member of parliament. Okay. The First Amendment Act of 1951 added a provision clarifying that freedom of speech does not permit incitement of offense or communal violence. That defamation case was lodged recently against a member of parliament, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Okay, so this is the defamation. And what is the way forward? Freedom of speech and expression should be arbitrariness, because the reasonable restrictions under Article 19 Clause 2 should avoid arbitrariness and excessiveness, striking a balance between freedoms and social control. Nature of restrictions. In assessing reasonableness, court should consider the nature of restriction and prescribed enforcement procedures on the individual freedom before arriving at a verdict. Education can help in development of understanding of free speech and promote its usefulness, such as protection of rights of minorities, women empowerment, transparency in governance, and awareness. Public authorities, NGO, civil society organizations, self-help groups, etc. can help in promoting awareness with respect to free speech. Okay, next is, what is hate speech? Recently, Supreme Court asked the governments of National Capital Territory of Delhi, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh to take suo motu action against hate speech crimes taking place within the jurisdiction. And Supreme Court, while hearing a plea to curb hate speeches in the country, issued a set of interim directions to governments of National Capital Territory of Delhi, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, including hate speech cases should be suo motu registered and offenders should be proceeded against in accordance with the law, not in the favor of any individual or the person or any of the state concerned. Supreme Court held that any hesitation to act as per directions would be viewed as contempt of court. Okay, and what is hate speech? The Law Commission in its 267th report defined hate speech as an incitement to hatred primarily against a group of persons defined in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs. And the hate speech is not mentioned anywhere in the Constitution or any other laws or customs. Okay, so here there is no specific legal definition of hate speech in India. Issues with hate speech. So before this, we can understand the legislations around hate speech. Constitutional provision under Article 19 Clause 2 gives all citizens the right to freedom of speech and expression, but subject to reasonable restrictions for preserving their alia public order, decency or morality. So remember this, Article 19 under 6 rights of reasonable restrictions against hate speech. And Indian Penal Code 1860, sections like 153, 153B, 153A and 298 etc. of IPC 1860 deal with speech or words that would create mischief, outrage religious beliefs or cause imputations to national integration. Representation of People Act 1951, Section 8 disqualifies a person under the Lily Thomas case from contesting election if he is convicted for indulging in acts amounting to illegitimate use of freedom of speech and expression. But Supreme Court rejected the Election Commission's appeals against the Lily Thomas case. Section 123, Clause 3A and Section 125 prohibits promotion of enmity on grounds of religion, race, caste, community, or language in connection with election as a corrupt electoral practice and prohibits it. And Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, Article 7 penalizes incitement to and encouragement of untouchability through words either spoken or written or by signs or by visual representations or otherwise. So you can remember these legislations for the hate speech. And if no more, the Lily Thomas case under the Representation of People Act 1951, you can subscribe this channel to update the videos which will provide in this platform, and very detailed discussions will be in this platform. Okay, so you can subscribe this channel and updated your video lectures. Okay, and next is the issues with hate speech. Before this, the important judicial pronouncement in context of hate speech. The state of Karnataka and another versus Dr. Praveen Bhai Thogadia 2004 case. Supreme Court held that state or district authorities were well within their rights to prohibit entry to that one does not make speeches which creates public order issue. Pravasi Bhalai Sangathan versus Union of India another 2014. Supreme Court lays down certain guidelines with regard to politicians making inflammatory speeches. So remember this. What are the issues with hate speech? Hate speech fuels discrimination, marginalization, and unfair treatment by reinforcing stereotypes and prejudices, leading to social exclusion and denied opportunities for certain individuals or groups. And hate speech affects individuals' overall psychological health by inducing stress, anxiety, depression, damaging self-esteem, sense of belonging. So, and hate speech incite individuals or groups to commit acts of violence against targeted individuals or communities. And balancing freedom of speech and countering hate speech requires careful legislation and enforcement to address harm without suppressing expression. So here it is very simple, that not defined in the detail. Okay, and what are the suggestions to tackle hate speech? Law Commission has proposed two new sections, that is section 153C and section 505 capital A in IPC to criminalize hate speech significantly. Similar proposals have been made by Bej Barua Committee and Viswanathan Committee, and also Committee for Reforms in Criminal Laws formed in 2020 is examining issue of having specific provisions to tackle hate speech, and implementing a robust code of conduct is essential for media agencies like YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook to effectively curb hate speech. Promoting empathy, fostering diversity, and strengthening legal frameworks to combat hate speech are important for fostering an inclusive and tolerant society. Next is the right against self-incrimination. What is the right against self-incrimination? Recently, the Kerala High Court ruled that Article 20 Clause 3 of Indian Constitution does not shield an accused from being compelled to provide a blood sample in criminal investigation. And what is the right against self-incrimination. Right against self-incrimination is a fundamental right under Article 20 Clause 3, which says no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. And this means no person can be detained without any evidence, okay, and no person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. Means here is that the no person can be compelled to see a witness as witness against himself, okay. And next is the implications of right against self-incrimination. Avoids miscarriage of justice against the improper compulsion or use of torture, and promotes spirit of natural justice and fair trial, as police cannot coerce anyone to confess to a crime, okay. And right to remain silent and not disclose anything out of force. So person has freedom to silent its speech or not disclosing anything out of the force, and onus rests upon the prosecution to prove the guilty beyond reasonable doubt, and right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So remember this. And what is does not apply: the right against self-incrimination. The production of material object. Here the right against self-incrimination is not applied. Right against self-incrimination does not cover the mandatory production of physical evidence such as documents or weapons relevant to a criminal investigation. Physical specimen right does not protect a person from providing a thumb impression, specimen signature, blood specimen, or exhibiting the body, and limited to criminal proceedings. Article 20 Clause 3 of the Constitution does not protect individuals from self-incrimination in civil or administrative proceedings. What are the criticisms of right against self-incrimination? Goes against duty to cooperate in investigation, because it is very simple to impose in the layman person against any high profile person, and task of investigators and prosecutors is made unduly difficult by allowing the accused to remain silent, does not deter improper practices during investigation, and protects guilty at the cost of such larger societal objectives. So here it is a protect guilty at the cost of such larger societal objectives, and scope restricted to testimonial acts while excluding physical evidence which can be extracted through compulsion. And important judicial pronouncement on right against self-incrimination. MP Sharma versus Satish Chandra, 1954. Supreme Court has widened the scope of Article 20 Clause 3, giving out the following essentials. Person must be accused of an offence, and protection against compulsion to be a witness, and compulsion to give evidence against himself. So the compulsion to give evidence against himself. A person cannot give evidence against himself, okay. Not cannot, but person may not give any evidence against himself without any threat of the 6 rights given under Article 19 Clause 3. And next is State of Bombay versus Kathekalu Ogard 1961 case. Supreme Court ruled that obtaining photographs, fingerprints, signatures, and thumb impressions would not violate the right against self-incrimination of an accused. And Selvi versus State of Karnataka 2010. Supreme Court held that a narco-analysis test without the consent of the accused would amount to violation of the right against self-incrimination. So here remember this. Also, results of these tests cannot be considered as confessions due to their inability to exercise choice in answering questions. However, obtaining a DNA sample from the accused is permitted. So remember this, okay? And next is the conclusion part. Right against self-incrimination as enshrined under Article 20 Clause 3 prima facie preserves the interests of person accused of an offence, but as a fundamental principle, it also preserves the interests of state but ensuring fair trial so as to maintain law and order in society. So remember it. So here I will end the lecture. So thank you very much. Have a good day.